Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, the show here on Let's Talk Entertainment, where going back to 2018, I've been attempting to read and review each of the roughly 600 short stories written by the late, great Ray Bradbury. Today we're up to story number 266, which is also the 6th of 25 stories in his 2002 collection, One More Further the Road. Today's story is Tête-à-Tête. If you don't know, Tête-à-Tête is a French term for a one-on-one private conversation, I guess. So the way that these reviews work is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story, sort of all the plot and action and character, and then I sort of wrap it up with just a very light analysis of what it all means to me, what I took away from it. Is it a good story worth your time to read? Where does it stand up in the pantheon of Bradbury's great works? So, two writers living in California, they like to walk the boardwalk each evening. Most evenings when they show up, there's a bench and there's an old Jewish couple who are always arguing on that bench. They are ridiculously over the top, shouting in each other's faces, but never really answering the other or listening to the other, and sort of not really being very, very coherent in the least. The narrator wonders how they could stand each other, but Sid, the man he walks with, who is Jewish, says, yeah, this is a pretty common thing. I had an aunt and uncle did this as well. But at the end of the day, they go home, they lay down to bed side by side, and they smile in their sleep because sort of, it's a type of therapy, I guess. Thinking all the banter to be good material, Sid decides one day that he's going to begin recording their conversations secretly, just because, you know, I guess he works for the theater. He even quips at one moment that I could put them on the stage tonight and they would sell out because people would pay to see this. But one night, suddenly, the couple is gone. They learn by asking the man in the local deli that, what about them? They find out that, in fact, the old man has died. And a few weeks go by, and the woman is no longer appearing on the bench. So the narrator, he tracks her down, finds out that where her husband was buried, and he sort of sneaks in and finds out that she goes and sits at his grave and continues to talk just as if he was there. So using the tapes that Sid had created, he decides that it might be a good idea to create a recording. So one day they go back to the beach, and there she is again. She's at the beach. She's talking apparently to herself, but if you listen really closely, you find out that she's in fact responding to the voice on the tape. So, it's not a great story in its execution. It doesn't quite work all the way as good as I would hope it would work. But it does work somewhat. I think there is a kernel of truth into this. It reminds me of my father's parents, my grandparents on my father's side, who you'd go in and there'd be two conversations going on, neither one responding to the other, and me not being part of the conversation. It was a really weird situation. They weren't Jewish, but I think this is something common among old couples in general. The story's a little bit fun, a little bit clever, a little bit heartwarming, but it's not so much really a story as it is an exercise in, I don't know, lightly expounding on a theme or an idea. It doesn't quite have a whole lot of plot or anything like that, and very little character, but in a way it just sort of works, and I do like it. It's not one of his better stories, but it's about how old couples get sort of caught in their patterns, and they sort of go on living in this sort of wonderful, miserable bliss that they do. And it reminds me of something that I notice about every other year here in the local papers, which is usually around the holidays. An old person, like 95 years old, will die. And then a few weeks later, you'll see another obituary, and it'll be that you find out that their spouse died, very shortly after, very nearly the same age. They've been married for like 75 years, and this idea that, one can't go on living without the other. And so, as much as a marriage can be rocky, it seems like for these people, marriage becomes the person truly does become their other half, which I think is interesting. But yeah, Tête-à-Tête from One More for the Road. Next time we'll be looking at a story called The Dragon Danced at Midnight, which is the 7th of 25 short stories in One More for the Road. And it'll also be our 267th story overall as we approach the halfway point of this long-winded project that I'm doing here. Thank you. And if you've read this story, let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. But I'll see you again in a couple of days.